Do you remember the first time you saw that black and gold Trans Am tear across a movie screen? In 1977, one car became an American obsession almost overnight. Today we're exploring 25 weird facts about the 1977 Pontiac Trans Am SE that even lifelong fans might not know. Let's start with the fact that this car was born for a birthday, not a movie. Everyone assumes the black and gold special edition was cooked up for Hollywood, but the truth goes back a year earlier. General Motors design chief Bill Mitchell created the black and gold treatment to celebrate Pontiac's 50th anniversary in 1976, when it debuted as the limited edition. Mitchell was a man who loved dramatic paint, and he draped the Trans Am in starlight black with gold pinstriping, a gold grille, gold wheels, and that enormous gold bird spread across the hood. When the package returned for 1977, Pontiac renamed it the Special Edition, and it just so happened to be sitting in showrooms at the exact moment a certain movie hit theaters. Timing like that only comes along once in a company's lifetime. The car wasn't chasing fame. Fame came looking for the car, and it found a machine that was already dressed for the occasion. 2 codes, 1 legend. Here's something that trips up even seasoned collectors. In 1977, the special edition wasn't 1 car, it was 2, and the difference lived on the build sheet. Cars ordered with the Hurst T-top roof carried the famous Y82 code, while hardtop special editions were stamped Y81. Back in 1976, every limited edition wore the Y82 code whether it had T-tops or not, so 1977 was the year Pontiac split them apart. That little detail matters enormously today because counterfeit Bandit cars are everywhere. Anyone can buy gold decals and snowflake wheels, but the cowl tag under the hood doesn't lie. Serious buyers check that tag for the Y82 or Y81 stamp before they check anything else. 2 letters and 2 numbers stamped into metal almost 50 years ago are now the difference between a genuine legend and a very pretty imitation. Imagine that. The 748 car secret. Everybody wanted T-tops in 1977, and the numbers prove it. Pontiac's records show 15,567 special edition Trans Ams built that year, but only 748 buyers ordered the hardtop Y81 version. That's right, fewer than 750 people chose the solid roof, while more than 6,000 happily paid the extra money for the Hurst hatches. Think about that for a second. The hardtop was cheaper, quieter, stiffer, and far less likely to leak on your head, yet almost nobody wanted it. The open-air glamour of those glass panels was simply irresistible in the summer of the Bandit. The funny part is what happened decades later. Those unloved 748 hardtops became some of the rarest second-generation Trans Ams in existence, and collectors who once walked right past them now hunt them down. Sometimes the least popular choice on the order form turns out to be the smartest one. The $50 bargain of the decade, buried in the 1977 option list, was possibly the greatest performance bargain of the entire decade. The W72 Performance Package, which swapped the standard engine for the hotter TA 6.6 version of Pontiac's 400 cubic inch V8, cost Trans Am buyers just $50. $50. That's roughly what a decent pair of work boots cost at the time. For that pocket change, you got a 4-barrel Rochester Quadra-J, a healthier 200 horsepower rating instead of the base engine's 180, and 325 pound-feet of torque at 2,400 RPM. Formula Firebird buyers paid $205 for the same package, which made the Trans Am deal look even sweeter. Thousands of buyers skipped it anyway, either because they didn't know or their dealer never mentioned it. The ones who checked that box drove home with the best engine Pontiac offered that year for less than the cost of a tank of gas and a nice dinner. Today, a documented W72 car can be worth thousands more than an identical base engine example. That $50 may be the best return on investment in muscle car history. The decal that told the truth. Here's a detail that separates the true faithful from the casual fans. The little decal on the shaker hood scoop told you exactly which engine sat underneath if you knew how to read it. Cars with the hot W72 engine wore a scoop that read TA 6.6. Cars with the base 400 or the Oldsmobile 403 wore one that simply said 6.6 liter. Now look closely at the Bandit's car in the movie and you'll see it. The scoop says 6.6 liter, not TA 6.6. The most famous Trans Am in cinema history wasn't wearing the badge of the top engine. Regular folks never noticed, but Pontiac people spotted it instantly, and they've been pointing it out at car shows ever since. It's a 2-inch piece of vinyl that has fueled 49 years of parking lot arguments, and honestly, that might be its greatest achievement. Some Trans Ams had an Oldsmobile heart. This one still upsets purists. If you bought a 1977 Trans Am in California or in certain high-altitude counties, your Pontiac didn't come with a Pontiac engine at all. Emissions rules meant those cars received the Oldsmobile 403 cubic inch V8, rated at 185 horsepower. Yes, an Oldsmobile engine in Pontiac's flagship performance car. The 403 was actually an interesting piece, a small block with a massive 4.35-inch bore, wider than a big block Chevy 454, and it delivered its torque low and easy. Plenty of owners drove for years without ever knowing what division built their engine. When word spread, some felt betrayed, while others shrugged and enjoyed the smooth power. Today, the engine question is one of the first things collectors ask about any 1977 car. Corporate cost-cutting created a controversy that Pontiac fans are still debating at cruise nights half a century later: chrome valve covers as a badge. Pop the hood on a 1977 Trans Am, and Pontiac gave you another secret handshake. The TA 6.6 engines, the W72 cars, came from the factory with gleaming chrome valve covers, while the base 400 engines made do with plain painted ones. It was a small touch, but back then, an engine bay was something you showed off at the drive-in and the gas station. Those chrome covers told everyone leaning over your fender that you'd ordered the good engine without you saying a word. Of course, chrome covers were also sold over every parts counter in America, so plenty of base engine owners dressed up their cars over the years. That's why restorers today dig deeper, checking engine codes and build sheets. But in 1977, before anybody worried about documentation, a little shine under the hood was all the proof a young man needed on a Saturday night. The Bandit drove a 1976. Now for the fact that shocks almost everyone. The Trans Ams and Smokey and the Bandit weren't 1977 models at all. Filming began in the late summer of 1976 before the 1977 cars were even available, so Pontiac supplied 1976 Trans Ams fitted with the new 1977 front end with its slanted nose and 4 rectangular headlights. Look carefully in certain shots and you can spot the 1976 dashboard giving the game away. So the movie that sold hundreds of thousands of 1977 Trans Ams technically starred cars from the year before, wearing a disguise. Hollywood magic at its finest. The stunt crew also stripped emblems and smoothed body panels to make the cars look cleaner on camera, another change nobody in the theater ever noticed. The public never knew and never cared, and dealers certainly weren't going to correct anybody who walked in waving a checkbook and asking for the Bandit's car. Did you see Smokey and the Bandit in a theater back in 1977? Tell us in the comments where you watched it, and whether you walked out wanting a Trans Am like the rest of America, the rocket-powered bridge jump. That famous leap over the dismantled bridge wasn't done on horsepower alone. Even with a strong V8, physics wasn't cooperating. So the stunt crew fitted the jump car with an actual booster rocket to hurl it across the gap. Reports over the years say that particular car was built up with an engine making around 700 horsepower before the rocket was ever bolted on. The jump worked, the cameras rolled, and the landing absolutely destroyed the car, crushing it beyond repair. In fact, of the 4 Trans Ams Pontiac provided for filming, 3 were wrecked during production, and the last one could barely run by the time the cameras stopped. There was no computer trickery in 1976, no digital cars, just brave men, sheet metal, and a rocket. The wrecked cars didn't go to waste either, since the crew stripped them for parts to keep the surviving ones running through the schedule. They destroyed real Trans Ams to make you believe one could fly, and believe it we did. Only one survivor. Here's the part of the story with a happy ending. Alongside the stunt cars, Pontiac supplied a promotional Trans Am that never performed a single jump or slide. While its siblings were being battered across Georgia, this car stayed clean, and after the film became a smash, it carried Burt Reynolds to premieres and press events. That promo car is widely considered the only original Bandit Trans Am left, and in 2016 it crossed the auction block for a stunning $550,000. Let that sink in. A car that cost several $1,000s new sold for more than $500,000, largely because of what it represented rather than what it did. The cars that did the actual work were crushed and forgotten, while the one that just looked pretty became a treasure. There's probably a life lesson in there somewhere, but we'll let you decide what it is. A brochure photo started it all. The whole phenomenon traces back to a single photograph. To create the cover of the 1977 Firebird sales brochure, Pontiac dressed up a 1976 Trans Am with the new front end and shot it in dramatic fashion. Director Hal Needham, a former stuntman preparing his little bootlegging comedy, saw that image and decided on the spot that this was the Bandit's car. Depending on who tells the story, either Needham or his old friend Burt Reynolds made the final call, but the spark was a piece of dealership literature. Think about that. A brochure designed to sit on a salesman's desk ended up shaping one of the most successful car movies ever made, which in turn shaped Pontiac's fortunes for years. Somewhere, a Pontiac marketing man deserved a raise he probably never got. Advertising has never accidentally worked so well before or since, and it happened because a stuntman turned director happened to flip open the right piece of paper at the right moment in 1976. The Steelers connection. Why black and gold? Bill Mitchell's anniversary scheme came first, but Hal Needham reportedly had his own reason for loving those colors on screen. The director was said to be a devoted fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had just won back-to-back Super Bowls in those exact colors, black and gold. In the mid-1970s, no color combination in America carried more swagger. Whether it was Mitchell's design eye or Needham's football loyalty that sealed the deal, the result was the same. The 1977 Trans Am SE looked like a champion before it ever turned a wheel, and audiences connected those colors with winning. It's a reminder that cars never exist in a vacuum. They soak up the culture around them, the music, the movies, the sports teams, and this one soaked up more of 1977 America than perhaps any car ever has. Beating Star Wars' Shadow. Smokey and the Bandit opened in May of 1977, just days after a little picture called Star Wars. Any other year, going up against the biggest movie in history would have been a death sentence, but the Bandit didn't just survive, it thrived. The film pulled in roughly $127 million at the North American box office and finished as the second highest grossing movie of 1977, behind only Star Wars itself. You heard right, a low-budget comedy about hauling Coors beer across state lines, directed by a first-time director, outperformed nearly everything Hollywood released that year. And every single ticket sold was a 2-hour commercial for the black and gold car on screen. Pontiac couldn't have bought that kind of exposure with 10 years of advertising budgets, and they got it essentially for the price of a few loaner cars. If these are bringing the memories flooding back, you are exactly who we make these for. Do us one small favor and subscribe so the next trip down memory lane finds you. That is all we ask. Now back to it, the sales explosion. The numbers that followed the movie are almost hard to believe. Pontiac sold about 46,700 Trans Ams in 1976. In 1977, the year of the movie, that jumped to a record 68,145. Then came 93,341 in 1978, and by 1979, more than 117,000 Trans Ams rolled off dealer lots in a single year. Sales nearly doubled in 2 years in the middle of an era when performance cars were supposedly dying. Dealers reported customers walking in and asking for the Bandit car by name, and the black and gold special editions were nearly impossible to keep in stock. Auto industry experts have said that placing a car in a hit movie beats almost any form of advertising, and the Trans Am is the proof they always point to. One film turned a strong seller into an outright phenomenon, and Pontiac rode that wave for years. Think about it. In an age of gas lines, emissions equipment, and shrinking engines, Americans lined up to buy a big black muscle car by the tens of thousands, simply because Burt Reynolds made it look like the most fun a person could have. The year it beat the Camaro. Here's a fact that would have sounded impossible a few years earlier. On the strength of the Trans Am's popularity, the Firebird line outsold its corporate sibling, the Chevrolet Camaro, in the late 1970s, 2 years running. For 1977, total Firebird production hit impressive heights, with 30,642 base cars, 34,548 Esprits, $21.801 formulas, and those 68,745 Trans Ams. Remember, just 5 years earlier, in 1972, the Firebird sold fewer than 30,000 cars total. and General Motors seriously considered killing it altogether. From nearly canceled to beating the Camaro in about 5 years is one of the great comebacks in Detroit history. The high-profit Trans Am carried the whole line on its back, and Pontiac even extended second-generation production because the car was selling so well. Over at Chevrolet, they surely noticed that their corporate cousin, once left for dead, was suddenly eating their lunch. Hard to believe the accountants once wanted it gone, isn't it? The new slant nose. The 1977 model year brought the Trans Am's most recognizable face. Pontiac gave the car a dramatic facelift with a slanted front end and quad rectangular headlights, replacing the two big round lamps of 1976. That new nose, with its blacked-out split grille, gave the car a lower, meaner, more modern look, and it became the face that everyone now pictures when they hear the words Trans Am. It's also the easiest way to tell a 1977 from a 1976 at a glance. Round lights, it's a 76. For rectangular lights, it's a 77 or later. The design was so strong that when Pontiac changed it again for 1979, plenty of fans complained the new look never matched it. Some front ends are just styling. This one became an icon that people recognize from 100 yards away. Nearly 50 years later, kids taped posters of that face to bedroom walls, and grown men parked at an angle in driveways just so the neighbors could admire it. That's what good design does. It doesn't just move metal, it moves people. Gold snowflakes. The special edition rolled on some of the prettiest wheels Detroit ever made, 15 by 7 inch cast aluminum snowflakes finished with gold accents to match the trim. Cast aluminum wheels were still a fairly exotic touch on an American car in 1977, when most everything rode on steel wheels with hubcaps or simple rally rims. The snowflake design, with its intricate pattern radiating from the center, looked like nothing else on the road, and the gold finish tied the whole car together. Those wheels became so identified with the Bandit look that reproductions are still being manufactured today, and clean original sets bring serious money at swap meets. Plenty of owners will tell you the wheels are the first thing people compliment. Not the engine, not the decals, the wheels. And here's the thing about originals. Those soft aluminum castings scraped easily on curbs, and the gold paint faded in the sun, so unmolested factory sets have become their own little collector market. 4 wheels, worth more than some whole cars. Which detail of the black and gold special edition do you love most? The snowflake wheels, the hood bird, or the gold interior trim? Tell us in the comments, we read every single one. The leaky Hurst hatches. Those glamorous T-tops came with a soggy secret. The 1977 special edition's removable glass panels were supplied by Hurst, the famous shifter company, and the Hurst hatches quickly earned a reputation for leaking. Owners learned to keep towels in the car for rainstorms and to expect a drip or two at the car wash. The seals were simply not up to the job, and Pontiac knew it. By 1978, the company began switching to a Fisher-built T-top design, which got its own special edition code, Y84, while the Hurst-equipped cars kept Y82. The Fisher panels were larger and sealed better, but here's the twist. Collectors today often prize the leaky Hurst cars more, precisely because they match the earliest Bandit-era configuration. Only in the collector car world can a design flaw become a selling point. A little water never hurt a legend, gold everywhere inside. Pontiac didn't stop the gold treatment at the door handles. Slide into a 1977 special edition, and the theme continued across the cabin. The instrument panel wore a gold-toned bezel, the Formula steering wheel had gold-painted spokes, and red Firebird emblems added the finishing touch. In an era when most car interiors came in acres of plain black or brown vinyl, sitting behind that gold-trimmed dash felt like something special, almost like a cockpit built just for you. The engine-turned look of the dash face caught the light in a way that made even a trip to the grocery store feel like an event. It was theater, pure and simple, and buyers loved it. Modern cars give us screens and ambient lighting, but there was something honest about Pontiac's approach. They made you feel fast and famous while you were still backing out of the driveway. The special edition wasn't cheap. All that black and gold glamour came at a price. In 1977, the special edition package cost $556 on the hardtop Y81, but a hefty $1,141 for the Y82 with the Hurst hatches, on top of the Trans Am's base price of around $5,156. To put that in perspective, $1,100 was serious money in 1977, several months of car payments for the average working family, and roughly $6,000 in today's dollars. Yet more than 15,000 buyers happily wrote the check that year. They weren't buying speed since the package was mostly appearance. They were buying membership in something, a piece of the movie, a slice of the year's biggest cultural moment. And judging by what documented special editions sell for today, often many times their original price, it turned out to be one of the better automotive investments a working man could have made. Underrated on purpose. That 200 horsepower rating on the W72 engine? Take it with a grain of salt. Pontiac had a long tradition of quietly underrating its performance engines, and the TA 6.6 continued it. Hot Rod Magazine reported that NHRA dyno testing put the W72 at somewhere between 260 and 280 actual horsepower, a far cry from the modest number on the window sticker. Underrating kept insurance companies calm and racing classes favorable, and Pontiac's engineers knew exactly what they were doing. Owners figured it out quickly too, because the cars simply ran harder than the numbers suggested. Road tests of well-tuned examples showed 0 to 60 times around 7 seconds. Genuinely quick for the late 1970s. So when someone tells you all 1970s cars were slow, remember that some of them were just modest. The Trans Am wore its horsepower like it wore its sunglasses, casually and with something held back, the off-center scoop mystery. Here's one for the trivia champions. Early 1977 Trans Ams left the factory with a shaker hood scoop that sat slightly off-center, a leftover of the way the engine and scoop lined up before a mid-year production change corrected it. Early W72 cars also came with the standard 180 horsepower engine's air cleaner before the proper hardware arrived. These little quirks mean that two seemingly identical 1977 Trans Ams can differ in ways only the sharpest eyes catch, and restorers use these details to date a car's build. Spotting an off-center scoop at a show and casually mentioning it is a guaranteed way to earn respect from the old-timers. Factories in those days made running changes constantly without press releases or announcements, and cars were living documents of the assembly line. Every 1977 Trans Am carries small fingerprints of exactly when it was born. 15,167 and falling. The Special Edition's production story has a strange shape to it. In 1977, at the peak of Bandit fever, Pontiac built 15,567 Special Edition Trans Ams. You'd expect that number to explode the following year, but instead, 1978's black and gold Special Edition production dropped to just 3,643 cars, partly because Pontiac introduced a gold Special Edition, the Y88, that split buyer attention. So the car everyone associates with 1978 and beyond was actually most plentiful in 1977 itself. That collapse in numbers makes the later black and gold cars rarer than most people assume, and it means the market is full of tribute cars built to satisfy demand the factory never met. Documentation, as always, separates the genuine article from the costume. It's funny how these things work. The year everyone remembers as the beginning turned out to be the high water mark, and by the time most of America caught Bandit fever on television reruns, the factory had already moved on. Did you or someone in your family ever own a Firebird or Trans Am of any year? Tell us the year, the color, and what happened to it. Those stories are our favorite thing to read. The 4-speed faithful. By 1977, America had fallen in love with the automatic transmission, and most Trans Am buyers ordered the Turbo Hydra-matic. But a devoted minority still wanted to row their own gears, and they got the Borg-Warner Super T10 4-speed. Among special edition cars, only about 2,699 were built with the 4-speed in 1977, less than 5% of total Trans Am production. Those cars are the ones collectors chase hardest today because a 4-speed W72 engine T-top special edition represents the absolute peak of what 1977 offered. Pushing in that clutch, grabbing the Hurst shifter, and hearing that 400 breathe through the shaker was about as good as the late 1970s got on 4 wheels. The automatic cars were quicker in some tests, truth be told, but nobody ever fell in love with a torque converter. The manual cars had soul, and soul is what survives. What came after? The 1977 Trans Am SE didn't just have a moment, it started an era. For 1978, Pontiac's engineers fitted revised cylinder heads to the 400 and bumped the W72's rating to 220 horsepower, and the black and gold package continued in various forms all the way through 1981, the end of the second generation. The Bandit look outlived the movie, outlived the 1970s, and honestly, it outlived Pontiac itself, which closed its doors in 2010. Today, documented 1977 special editions regularly bring strong 5-figure and even 6-figure prices, and the sight of one at a car show still draws a crowd 3 deep. Not bad for an appearance package on a smog-era pony car. Some cars are transportation, some are investments, and a rare few become permanent pieces of American culture. This one made the last list, and it did it in black and gold. If you enjoyed this, tell us in the comments what you'd like us to cover next. We've already got a long list, but the best ideas come from you. Most likes go straight onto it. Subscribe so you're here when it lands.